Hello, my friend. Welcome here. I'm Aimee Esther, and today I wanted to share with you how I budget while living chronically ill. This is something that I have been working on a lot myself, and I've come to find a system that works really well for me and my family, and I want to share it with you today, especially if you also live chronically ill and you have extra medical bills and extra medical expenses that come up that are unknown and can just add up so quickly. Now, the first is if you have a spouse or partner, to make sure you do your budgeting together and that you're on the same page. Now, if you're single, of course, do it on your own. If it's helpful to have a parent or a friend or someone that you trust and love help you with it, of course, do that. Whether you're doing it on your own or with a spouse or partner, every single week you have got to look at your money at least once a week. If you do this, I promise it will be so much easier to stay on top of. Anytime I have missed a week of going through our budget, things start to slip through the cracks. I have to sit down and do it every single week. So for us, it's Sundays. It's just part of our routine. Every Sunday, we sit down, me and my husband, we look at the numbers, we go over what's working, what's not working. Did we go over budget? Where is the problems? Where are things going well? And we sit down and we look at it every week and we write everything down. So I recommend you have some sort of Excel document or budgeting app where you write every single penny down that you spend, because trust me, it adds up so much faster than you think it does. My next tip is to have a plan for when you go over budget. Have a plan for when you spend more than you said you would, whether it's something that you did because of your self-control or something that came up unexpectedly, like a medical bill or a house bill or something that you just didn't know it was coming. We all have those things. Anytime you go over budget, you need to have a plan ahead of time for what you're going to do when that happens. And the last tip, before we get into the nitty-gritty numbers and what we actually do, my last tip is to make sure you have multiple savings accounts. So I like to have a savings account for my business. I have my own business, so I have a savings account for that. I have a savings account for things that we want, things that we are building up for. We're wanting to finish our basement one day, so you need to have an emergency fund. There's a lot on the internet about emergency funds. I'm not going to go into the details of it. Listen to Dave Ramsey or some other expert. And then I like to have one for things that come up that I don't want to pay for, like medical bills or house stuff or car stuff that I just have to do because I'm an adult. So here is how we set up our budget. So like I said, we write everything down, but what are you going to write down? How much are you going to spend? This is what we do. So I have an Excel document that I created for our family. Honestly, I just used the template that was on Excel. So I would totally share with you, except I don't feel like it's mine to share. And there's a specific order that I set up my budget. So the first thing that we do is we pay what we call tithing, which is where we give back to our church. So this could be any kind of giving that you want to do. We personally pay 10% back to our church, and that's the first thing we pay. We believe in paying the Lord first, and if you don't believe in that, then do what you want. You don't have to do that. But for us, we find so many blessings when we first pay 10% to others and we give first. So first we give, then second we pay ourselves. Now we had to first go through all the numbers of what we're typically going to spend and see how much we had left to save every month. And in order to know this number, we did have to first write out everything else and figure out, okay, how much are our normal spendings? How much can we afford to pay ourselves? And the third thing is our regular monthly bills. So these are separated into two categories. I guess three categories, technically. We have three categories, which is our monthly expenses, our weekly expenses, and our unknown bills. So let's start with monthly. These are things that come out of our paycheck every month, or we pay them once a month, such as our utility bill, our mortgage, gas for our cars, things that we can budget more on a monthly basis. We also put in a Costco budget. We go to Costco once a month typically. So some things will vary month to month, such as your power bill. And there are ways to get on certain plans where you pay the same amount every month. And that's great if you can do that. If you can't, what I like to do is take 6 months to a year's worth of bills and I track, okay, what is the average that this is coming out to? And what I like to do is overestimate. I like to take the highest number that that it ever was in the year and set that as my budget for the month. And then come our weekly bills. And I separate these into two categories for our family. We have our weekly groceries and our weekly other family. I just call it weekly money. First, obviously, for our groceries, and second, for anything else that is a family expense. It could be something fun we want to do if we want to go to the zoo, or it could be for when my kids need new socks and underwear and things like that. These are for any kind of family expense that we decide together, me and my husband, is worth spending our money on. And the reason I like to do weekly groceries and other family stuff instead of monthly is because it's so much easier to track, and it's so much easier to stop myself from going to the grocery store and having some excuse as to why we need to spend over budget, because I only have a couple days until our budget resets. Whatever we didn't spend that week rolls over into the next week. So then we have our unknowns, and these are things like medical bills, or your car breaks down, or something breaks in your house that you just have to fix because you're an adult, and those things always come up. So what we like to do is go to 6 to 12 months in the past, look at how much did we spend on medical bills every month for the past year? How much did we spend on car stuff over the past year? For example, with medical bills, I went back the past year and saw that, okay, some months I spent $100, some months I spent $1,000 or more. But I found on average it was around $300 a month. So I set my budget as $300 a month for medical bills. Now, some months we are way under, and some months we're way over that. But it kind of evens itself out because, for example, let's say next month I spend $100 on medical stuff. Well, my budget was $300, which means I have an extra $200, and I take that, I put it in the savings account. When we talked about at the beginning, having a separate savings account for medical things and extra things that come up, I take that $200, I put it in that savings account, and then I have an extra $200 for when the month after I have a $500 bill. And now I have the extra money saved in order to pay those bills. Now, of course, it doesn't ever work out perfectly. It's always going to be a little off. Some months in that savings account, we have $500 and I get a bill for $2,000. And again, we have to just look at it and take stock of how can we make this work. So maybe we have to go into debt for that. Maybe we have to take from our emergency fund or from another savings account that we are trying to save up for. But that's why it's important to every week sit down and do this, and sit down and write out the numbers and say, oh crap, we did go over because we had this huge medical bill. How are we going to pay for it when we don't have enough in our savings account? And you have to figure that out. But when you do it every week, it's not as scary. It's not as overwhelming. We get stressed and overwhelmed with the money and how much we owe that then we don't do anything because our brains think that's easier in the moment. When in reality, it's a whole lot easier to sit down every week and look at the numbers and figure out how am I going to pay for this. I have 2 podcast episodes about money. I will link them down below if you want help on your money mindset, because you've got to change your mindset if you're going to be able to control your bank account. So I will leave most of the mindset stuff for that video. This is much more the numbers, how we do the thing. And one more monthly bill that I forgot to mention is our fun budget. Now, this is the last thing that comes up, and that is the fun things, such as Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. My husband and I also like to budget out if possible. We definitely have times in our lives where it's not in the budget to do, but our goal is to have personal fun money. And this is no questions asked. You can spend this on whatever you want. Typically, my husband and I do $50 a month for each of us to spend on whatever we want. We also throw things like preschool or gymnastics or anything like that that we would like our kids to do. And the last thing we do, if we have any extra at the end of the month after that, is we decide together, me and my husband, what we want to do with it. Is there something we want to be saving up for? Do we want to add in date money next month? Do we want to invest it? Do we want to just go buy something fun for our family because we have a little bit extra? So that is how we budget our money, how we separate everything out. I hope that made sense. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any budgeting tips for us, please leave them in the comments below. We would love to hear any advice that you have for me and anyone else watching this video. Now, this video has been about budgeting the money that you're already making or you already have or you already know is coming in. But if you would like in the future, I'd be happy to make videos about how to make more money as someone who lives chronically ill. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to get working on something for you because I have lots of tips and tricks about all the things. And again, if you want more about mindset, the podcast episodes are linked below. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you on the next one.